Not bubblers. Like 30. Yeah, you're right. I need to run.
Today.
Third, fourth.
And how much does it need to?
That's what you think, at least enough once.
Right. 69. Only like this goes as an app.
So it's like 7.
Only like this and a half.
This is 2%. Got it. Yeah.
That and a half.
That was 3. What I'm done.
That.
I don't know why.
These top 2 names.
Major.
You get 600.
Credits.
Yeah, every amount.
That's the way the CPA.
Oh, it's just past that.
Okay, we are calling this meeting to order at 4:03 p.m. and then we are starting with our land recognition statement. Student government acknowledges that we live, work, and learn in the homeland of the Dakota people, whose language frames our institution's name, Minnesota State University, Mankato. We will now move into our first roll call. Senator Hassan. Senator Leon. Present. Senator Franzen.
Here.
Senator Mucci. Senator Prignitz.
Here.
Senator Emke. Senator Ponte. Senator Mackey.
Here.
Senator Bugney. Senator Reyes.
Here.
Senator Maega.
Here.
Senator Thapa.
Here.
Senator Mpanga. Senator Lee.
Present.
Senator Dietrich.
Here.
Senator Smith. Senator Green.
Yeah.
Senator Johnson.
Yep.
Senator Moore. Senator Maba. Zoom. Senator Knauer.
Here.
Senator Karki. Senator Livingston.
Here.
Senator Riggle.
Here.
Senator Colleran.
Present.
Senator Zelmer.
Present.
Senator Ide.
Present.
Senator Hillstead.
Present.
Senator Isaac. I'm here, President Narella,
Present.
and Vice President Jay.
Present.
And we have quorum, so we will move into the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any dissent to the consent agenda?
I make a motion.
President Narella,
I make a motion to move open forum and dean of the day ahead of presentations.
is there a second?
Second.
Alrighty, so the motion is to move open forum and dean of the day to before presentations. Is there any dissent to that motion? Any dissent? Seeing none, that motion has been approved, so we will have open forum and presentations beforehand. Alrighty, going back into the approval of the whole consent agenda. After that amendment, is there any other amendments to the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there any dissent to the new consent agenda? Alrighty, seeing none, our consent agenda and agenda has been approved. So moving forward, we are skipping to open forum. Is there anyone here for open forum? Alrighty, you may come up to the podium.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Katie Jollifer. I was invited here to introduce myself. I'm the new Director of Career Services. I'm located down in the Career Development Center in 209 over in the Administration Building. I've been tasked with running the Career Development Center, but also building industry partnerships to bring employers to campus to create high-impact experiences for all of the students. So if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or contributions to make to that, I invite you to reach out to me at any time. I'm very responsive to emails, and I can always sit down and meet with any one of you. So I encourage you to reach out to me. Okay.
Thank you. Alrighty, is there anyone else here? VP Jones? Yes.
Could not ask for a better segue. Following up the good work that Katie, who just left, is doing and everything, that I hope you realize, all of us here at the university hope that you get a job someday. And to help with that, we host career fairs all throughout the year. And I want to bring your attention to a career fair that's going to happen tomorrow. That's going to be a little bit different because of the environment and the climate in which we are standing in right this time right now. Tomorrow is our annual spring law enforcement career fair. So there'll be a lot of police officers, sheriff's department, state police, a lot of folks all across the campus that are here. It happens every spring. It's a normal thing to do. However, with heightened awareness, people worried about ICE about other things that are happening here nationally. We want to bring it to your attention that tomorrow's activity is normal. There's not anything else going on here on campus. And so ask you to share that word out with many others to make sure that there's not a misinterpretation, anything that might happen tomorrow. Our hope is that a lot of our law enforcement students find jobs tomorrow. That is the goal. So with that, thank you.
Senator Zelmer?
Will there be a photo booth there again? I remember at one of the career fairs there was a photo booth.
I believe they do that at every one. If it's not available actually at the interview session, it is available in their main office.
Any other questions? See none, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else here for open forum? Yes, come on up. Okay, yes, Scott, yes.
Just a real quick update. Last weekend, another great weekend, Maverick Athletics. Hockey team won their 7th McNaughton Cup in the last 8 years as regular season champions, 9th in program history. This weekend, they're home to close out the regular season. Women's hockey swept St. Thomas. They go up to Minnesota to open playoffs. Men's and women's basketball both advanced to the quarterfinals of their conference tournament, so they had a first round bye tonight, and they'll go over to Sioux Falls this weekend. And then track and field hosting 15 teams this weekend in Myers Fieldhouse for the conference championship. So another normal weekend in Maverick Athletics, busy one, but continued success for the Mavericks.
Alrighty, anyone else here for open forum? Okay, perfect. Don't see any more hands. Alrighty, so then we will move into the Dean of the Day. And we have Dr. Bach from the College of Business.
As I introduced, Sung Bach, Dean of College of Business and Dean of the Day. Thank you for having me. As usual, my routine, I'm gonna go over a quick snapshot of things happening at my college, our college. A lot of things going on in College of Business. Just give you one example happened today. 18 students, our business student went to Tailwind Corporation to talk about the real estate and real estate development. And they learned a lot and had lunch with C-suite people back there. And I came back with lots of learning. That's kind of things we do every day. Quick, a few updates about things happen. Maverick Innovation Gateway is on its way. Interior, the tenant improvement has been pretty much done. We're waiting for a few exterior and also additional construction to beautify that the formerly known as Maverick Bookstore. We plan to have a grand opening in September, first week or second week of September, because weather effect in Minnesota, we cannot finish painting and some other things exterior until June. So we're gonna wait until you come back from the summer, and we're gonna have ribbon cutting for the gateway in September. However, the inside, the soft launching will be begun from the April. So some of those the class gonna be held at the inside of the gateway, and you may be coming in test run at the center if you would like to give it a shot. Okay, soft launching gonna be happen end of March and April, and that's about the Maverick Innovation Gateway. Some other things happen at college. In April, we have 2 big event plans to do it. First one, as a part of the University Research Week, College Business has 2 events held on April 4th. Early morning, we have about 8 faculty members coming in to present their research and their finding and what they want to do with the student and community. We're gonna have a quick presentation from that. And after lunch, we're gonna moving into the first, the faculty student research symposium. And this semester, more than few faculty, I think 4 or 5 faculty members teams up with 4 or 5 students. They complete their research. So we're gonna have a symposium on afternoon so that we can have a showcase of what they found through this symposium day. So you are invited to come speak to a student researcher and also faculty researcher as well. And following week, April 11, we have first financial literacy conference held on campus, CSU right here, which will be hosted by Maverick Center for Financial Success, which is new center. The center gonna host its first literacy event, which has a multiple parallel session. That topic in ag business and also small business development, all related to this financial literacy in those fields. So you can come sign up and working with professional panels, invited to those conference, the half day session. Okay. What else? I had one more thing to share with you. Okay, so I have another email from you, the two of you, two student contact College of Business about Thrifty store concept. So I scheduled to meet with the two of you, Trenton and Ashley, in this Friday, speaking to our teams to brainstorm about what we may do on campus with that business concept. Okay, that's all about it, and I'm open for the question if you have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our Dean of the Day? Alrighty, seeing none, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Alrighty. So moving on to the rest of the agenda, we go to presentations. Our first presentation is from the Intercollegiate Athletics Fee presentation. So we have our two students, Drake and Nathan, if they're here. And you two can come on up to the podium. And then make sure to speak really clearly and loudly into the microphone, or you can also hold it too, just because I know it's hard to hear. We're uploading your presentation onto the screen, so just give us one moment.
Feel free to take the microphone off the stand. It typically works a lot better. And just a reminder to Senate, you can find this presentation and all of the supplemental materials in the Teams drive. So if you'd like to look at that during this, all of those things, you're welcome to do that.
And then you guys will have 15 minutes for your presentation, and I'll keep a timer going for you. So you can start whenever you are ready.
My name is Drake Hayward. I am a senior here at Mankato on the wrestling team.
And then I'm Nathan Gribble, and I'm a senior on the football team.
And we are a part of the Athletic Fee Committee. I'd like to thank the student government members, Andrew, Abishu, Mashoud, and Rebecca for helping us leading up to today's presentation. We have gathered weekly over the past months to discuss and consult what is best for the students and student athletes on campus, and hope we can be able to share that today with you all. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Nathan, who will kick off our presentation.
Next slide. Mavericks on a mission. As you can see in the handout that covers everything about Maverick Athletics, we've been killing it in the classroom and on the playing surface this past year. We had a 3.27 GPA across 20 in the spring of 2024 across all of our athletic programs. We had 7 NSIC championships and 2 national championships from the men's and women's basketball programs. Across our 20 athletic programs, our student athletes fund around 80% of their own cost of attendance. Most of our athletes on campus are not on full scholarships, contrary to the popular belief that everyone that is an athlete is on a full ride. Next slide.
Why Maverick Athletics is deserving of your student fee support. Maverick Athletics sustains nearly 1,000 student participation opportunities. We have 603 student athletes across 20 different sports programs. More than 375 student support opportunities, such as the Mav Machine, who attend almost every one of our home events, and Mavericks cheerleading, the dance team, team managers, video and film support staff, athletic trainers, media and relations, marketing interns, and so on and so on. We have more than 25,000 student engagement opportunities through our student attendance at events such as football, basketball, hockey, and more than our 200 events annually. And we obviously have championships teams, as Nathan had mentioned earlier. Not only that, but we see athletics as a window to the university. It's a rallying point for students, faculty, alumni, and a point of pride and community. We pride ourselves in building champions competitively in the classroom and the community. Next slide.
Where do we stand with comparing numbers to other institutions that are part of the MinSU system. At our current rate of $5.58 per credit hour, we are at the third lowest athletic fee rate in the MinSU system. We are currently 57 cents under the highest funded institution in the system. And then while talking with other member institutions, they are looking to go to the max this year at $6.25 per credit hour.
Doing our fair share. As you can see, the current overall fiscal year 25 operating budget was $7.5 million, while the current fiscal year 25 fee support is only $1.5 million. That gives the proportion of the student fee funded 20%, while we have to fund the other 80% through ticket sales, such as at the Sessioner Gate, corporate partnerships, special fundraising events, donor support, you name it. Note that student fee funding is not the only component supporting our intercollegiate athletics, with more than 80% of the budget being funded by those other resources. And there's been little growth in the overall amount generated by student fees over the last decade. It just goes to show how student athletics and our teams are having to pull ourselves up and having to fund ourselves. For example, a part of the wrestling team, each year we do our annual beanbag fundraiser, which funds nearly probably over half of our fees. While also we do a lot of reffing on the weekends, which is typically just a day after competition, which goes from roughly 8 a.m. to afternoon, just showing how dedicated we are to keeping ourselves afloat in today's world. Next slide.
Fee support 101. As noted on this slide, the total dollar support is a product of per credit fee support multiplied by fee paying credit hours. Unfortunately, enrollment and resulting fee paying credit hours have dropped significantly over the last decade, a trend that is not likely to change much anytime soon. In fact, the current credit base estimate provided for this exercise is projected to decrease by 1.3% to just under 280,000 credits, a drop of more than 53,000 credits since its high point of around 335,000 during the fiscal year of 2013. This has resulted in relatively flat rates of growth and overall fee support, while the cost of spending in key categories supported by the student fees has nearly doubled during that time, which will be illustrated later in the presentation.
What did we accomplish with last year's fee increase? As many of you understand, inflation has had a ravishing effect on our entire economy over the last 5 to 6 years. Prior to last year, the rate of inflation has outpaced the rate of student fee increase by almost a 2.5 to 1 margin, resulting in a significant loss of purchasing power. As you can see, your generosity last year helped close the inflation rate for the first time in more than a decade. It should be pointed out, however, that the inflation index applied was more of a modest general index. We have actually experienced more significant double-digit inflation in many of our major line item expenses, such as transportation, lodging, and meals. For example, several years ago, a bus trip to Brookings for the track team was $1,700, and the following year it was $3,400. Fortunately, these costs are now beginning to stabilize a bit, but we still see an increase in major line items like transportation that are far above the normal CPI. Next slide.
What we propose. Our proposal of 28 cents combined with a 1.31% decline in the credit hour base creates around $57,000 in new support for athletics. The net increase of 3.64% will help offset forecasted inflation for the next year. This increase comes out to $3.36 a semester or $6.72 per semester. Next slide.
An increase to 586 credits per hour by the numbers. With a slight decline in the credit hour base, an increase of 28 cents in the per credit hour fee results in a net increase of 3.64% that would bring in an additional $57,000 of student fee budget support. This has helped offset dramatic inflation impacts from the normal inflation, but does not fully restore the per student athlete or percentage student fee support of key areas to more favorable levels previously experienced. For example, as my wrestling team, we eat at places like Subway or Jimmy John's a lot for meals on the road trips. Several years ago, one of the least expensive subs, as many of you know, was a $5 footlong. Currently, that same sandwich right now is $14. Might not sound like much, but with 20 guys, that's almost more than $280 more for a meal. And we have roughly 5 away duels per year, which is nothing compared to baseball's 20. So it can add up pretty quickly. Also, that's just one of the Mavericks' 20 teams. And don't forget, football's travel party is 70 people. Next slide.
Why we need the additional support. The student fee support spending goes towards 4 areas, otherwise known as the core 4. The first being recruiting, the second being team travel, the third being equipment and supplies, and the fourth being game expenses. Expenses in some of these categories have nearly doubled in the last decade, far outpacing normal inflation as noted above. Student fee support as a percentage of these core 4 expenses has declined from 48.37% in 2015 to 29.35% in 2024. Excellent.
An increase of 28 cents per credit hour, the good, the bad, and still to be decided. An increase of 28 cents per credit allows us to keep pace with normal CPI, but lag behind in certain core 4 categories such as team travel, where the inflation index for diesel fuel and lodging far exceed normal CPI. In anticipation of an increase to the maximum per credit hour, athletics had budgeted for an additional $150,000 student fee support, leaving a gap between the 28-cent credit hour increase and the 67 credit hour increase of just over $109,000, still pending. The impact of potentially charging online students for athletic fee and or possible changes to tuition ban and the impact it will have on the credit hour base. Changes to either of these elements could help offset the $109,000 budget gap, but those decisions will be made after the student fee budget process concludes. So there's still some level of risk and uncertainty. Next slide.
An increase of 28 cents per credit hour by the numbers. Some have expressed concerns about the percentage increase rather than focusing on the actual dollar amount. In terms of personal finance, the more appropriate focus would seem to be how much will this cost me per semester, rather than what is the actual percentage increase. For example, when you go to Starbucks, you don't necessarily say my favorite $5 coffee drink went up 5%, but instead you have to decide whether you're willing to spend another 25 cents to keep buying it because you enjoy it. Next slide.
The final appeal for an increase of 28 cents per credit hour. Despite the increase being less than the originally contemplated 5% versus the 12, we still realize the magnitude of this request and appreciate the economic climate we're all operating in as fellow fee-paying students. We're also extremely grateful for a 5% increase. Historically, this would be the 4th largest percentage increase since athletics moved to the fee request process in fiscal year 13. Make no mistake, we appreciate the relationship SAC has with student government and hope we make our fellow students proud every opportunity we have to represent them. We are all Mavericks. We respectfully request that student government support a referendum so that all student voices can be heard on this important matter. Next slide.
In conclusion, we thank you for listening to our presentation on the importance of student support to athletics. Student fee support is huge for our athletic department funding to help our teams do as well as they do. Without the support, we would not be able to represent the university as well as we do. We would like to open up for any questions. Thank you.
Alrighty, y'all. I will open up the floor for any questions. And I will just keep a running list for the speakers list. First placard I saw was Senator Leone.
Hi, thank you for coming in. I'm a student on the athletics. I'm in the MSU cheer team. And for multiple semesters, the cheer team and as well as the dance team have expressed that they wanted recognition throughout their semesters and leading years in athletics. Did you guys have a plan about providing stashes or cords for them at all?
If you guys can answer the question, then I do invite either Kevin or Scott to defer. Yeah, we can defer to them.
I think the question was about the student athlete stoles. Is that correct?
Yes.
Currently, we can revisit that, but the stole ceremony is for student athletes at this time, and cheer and dance teams are currently recognized as support activities. Student athlete is a term designated by the NCAA, recognized for championship level, NCAA championship level participants.
Thank you. Senator Ide.
Thank you guys for coming out and spending your time. I know it's always hard to give a presentation in front of a lot of people. So I'm just wondering, last year you guys asked for a full dollar increase in budget. Also a 21% increase from $4.58 to $5.58. In 2023 to 2024, accounting for the decrease of revenue and fees from less students actually like paying the fees because there's more online students, so there's just less people paying fees. Doing the math, we only saw a decrease of $53,000, yet last year you asked for nearly $300,000. Now you ask for another $80,000. Additionally, any time that athletics goes into the red, the general fund covers it to ensure that they don't go into deficit. With credit hours being covered by last year's budget in mind, what are these additional funds going to be going to?
Continue to yield. I don't know if you could go back to that, I don't know where it was in the slide deck, maybe about slide 8 or slide 9. But I think probably a couple things to recognize is, hopefully we get to it. I think you'll see that there was a significant gap for more than a decade in terms of what we call athletic inflation compared to normal CPI, where there was a significant gap between student fee support adjusted for CPI and right here. And so that was a very generous $1 increase that finally was able to close the gap between inflationary costs and student fee support. And in consultation this year, I think that's the feedback that we got from student government is that there was support to say, let's try to continue that now that we finally have closed the gap, that we support trying to keep up with CPI. We're projecting inflation next year to be somewhere between 3 and 4%. I think some are expecting that it could edge higher. But with this increase that we've talked about with a 5% increase in the slightly projected decline in the credit hour base, the net increase is right there with what we expect for inflation. So this is, again, consistent with the consultation process that a request, keeping pace with inflation now that we have closed that gap, to try to continue that trend.
Point of information. Within the last 3 years, you've asked for over 500,000 in total. So how does that account for, is this a point of information? How does that account for that deficit?
The deficit or where's the money going? Is that your question? I mean, I think that's probably what we're trying to demonstrate was that because of things that are outside of your control, you don't really control that credit hour base, that other side of the equation. We've been plugging along with some level of student fee increase, but unfortunately, as we saw in a couple slides prior to that, there'd been a pretty steady decline of almost 50,000 credit hours. That's completely outside the student government's control. But because of that trend, we had fallen way behind in keeping pace with inflation. And as we mentioned, or as the presenters mentioned, that was just keeping pace with normal CPI. We talked about the core 4. We've experienced much more significant rates of increase in lodging, meals, and transportation. So even sort of closing that gap or adjusting and catching up to normal CPI last year, we still lag way behind in trying to keep pace with what we would call core 4 inflation or athletics inflation.
Thank you. So our next person is Senator Livingston.
Thank you for being here. My question is regarding you mentioned student engagement opportunities. I just want to avoid some misconceptions or intentional inflating numbers here. How many of those are athletes?
What was the question?
How many of those are athletes?
The participation opportunities? 609.
Senator Riggle.
I was wondering if you happen to have an average amount that student athletes pay individually to take part in their activities. I know it varies depending on what activity you're taking part in, but I was wondering if you happen to have some sort of average number.
Yeah, I think, if we go back to that original slide, there's some basic math that you could do that would get you to an average. And I think the average is very misleading. I mean, we have everything from student athletes, mostly in our Division I sports, that are on closer to a full scholarship, to walk-ons that are getting nothing and actually paying to play. They're paying an insurance fee to play. We are funding just about 145 equivalent scholarships that are allocated across those 609 student athletes. So you can kind of do the math. It'd probably take you out. I think that's where we came up with the figure of about 28%. So the 145 equivalent scholarships divided by the number of student athletes would get you an average. But again, be careful of sort of that normative idea of average. That's everything from paying to play to student athletes that are on a full scholarship.
Thank you. Next we have Senator Dietrich.
Thank you. So I just want to thank the two presenters. I think you guys did an awesome job, and I'd like to thank you very much for being here with us today and presenting this PowerPoint with us. I take issue with the numbers that you quote about like the student opportunities and engagement, because you use those numbers, which are inflated, to give us a sense that there's more students getting benefit from athletics. Meanwhile, you don't even give stoles and cords to like the add-on students that support you, because they're support aspects. And so 609 students, and what is the breakdown per student of student fee money that is going to athletics? So for the complete breakdown of how much money you get right now, if we divide that by 609 students, what is each student getting from the student fees?
I don't have a calculator, Henry. I don't know that we've got that on one of our slides. We certainly have some information about the increase would amount to per program and per student athlete. We have that somewhere, I think, in some of the information that we provided in the folder, but I guess it would be the total dollars of student fee support divided by 609 student athletes would be the amount per student athlete.
Thank you. Sorry. Next up is Senator Leon with your question.
I'm just a little bit confused because in your slideshow, you mentioned that cheer and dance teams are a part of your individual support with your athletics. Could you expand like what you mean your support with the cheer and dance team, I guess? I'm just really confused about that.
What was the question?
In your slides, you mentioned that the cheer and dance team as a part of your individual support within the athletics. Could you expand on what you mean as your support to our dance and cheer team?
There is student fee funding that is dedicated to support cheer and dance that we receive as part of this process. And as far as I think the question about providing opportunities beyond 609 student athlete participation opportunities, I think that's just to demonstrate that there's kind of tentacles to this that pull more people into this intercollegiate athletic experience, whether it be as student fans, whether it be as managers, cheer team, dance team, Maverick Machine. There's a lot of pieces that to the student experience, and it's not just the 609 student athletes that benefit from your support, but all those that are involved in some tangential way, directly through cheer and dance to student fans.
And then we have Senator Mackey.
So, you guys fund a, thank you for being here. You guys fund yourself quite well through donors and ticket sales and all that stuff fairly well. Just how hard theoretically would it be to get that extra, what was it, 70,000 from a private donor?
You're talking about the what would come via the 5% support, the 5% increase?
Yes.
Well, I think I could answer a couple different ways. You know, a lot of our private donor support is really geared towards supporting a $3.3 million scholarship budget, which is largely funded. So that's another obligation in terms of backfilling where we have some gaps in student fee support and using ticket money, corporate partners and those types of things to bridge the gap in the budget. A lot of the private support is earmarked for scholarships. I would say as we've kind of fallen behind, you know, and behind the pace of inflation, we have really had to direct what he was describing as these fundraising activities, these beanbag tournaments, and going to referee junior wrestling tournaments after coming off maybe a road trip to Fayette on Saturday night and jumping in the car and driving over to Waseca and working a wrestling tournament all day. Those types of fundraising activities used to be geared towards supporting scholarships. And now, you know, we're using those types of fundraising activities to support these guys getting on the bus.
Thank you. We have Senator Prignitz.
Thank you for presenting today. Just a question I have is during your presentation, a focal point was you're spending a lot of money on food, on eating out. Is it an option to make pre-made meals or do you have to eat out?
I think it can be a blend of both. And, you know, I would say, you know, it's not the glamorous life that anybody imagines. I mean, I think this is a much more informed student senate. And I remember being in these guys' shoes presenting, you know, 10 years ago and having student government inquiry about the level of scholarship support and the perception that all of our athletes were on full ride scholarships. And so we continue to kind of refute that misperception, but I think it's probably something that we've covered pretty thoroughly recently. But yeah, I mean, it's not glamorous. You know, our softball team has what they call cooler lunches. They see maybe some of their peers wandering off to Panera or Subway, and Coach Meyer, Lori Legend, the winningest softball in Division II history, is inviting them back to the bus for a cooler meal. She actually talked about in the coaches meeting this morning that they've expanded the cooler meal to the crockpot meal. And so they're actually, she is preparing meals for when they leave campus out of her pocket. She's funding that and preparing crockpot meals. I'm not sure that's the standard that we want to be at aspirationally, but yeah, we're stretching things to make it work.
All right, thank you. And then we have Senator Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting, and glad to hear. I wrestled in high school some time ago. They didn't allow me to eat sandwiches. So I'm glad you get to enjoy that. My question is, do all student athletes pay these fees, or do some of the scholarships waive the fees in addition to tuition?
Are you talking about specifically the athletic fee, the technology fee, all the fees that you're going to hear presentations about? They are, in some cases, some portion of scholarship would cover that, but not in all cases, and would not cover the full fee. So I think that's part of, you know, they're empathizing with you as fee-paying students. The increase that they're asking for, they'll turn around and pay themselves.
Senator Zelmer.
Hey guys, thanks for being here. I was wondering what % of your athletes are walk-ons?
That's a good question. I would really have to research that. He's mentioning that on the football team with a roster of just about 100, they have about 15 walk-ons. I wouldn't say that you could extrapolate and say that therefore football, everybody has about 15% walk-ons. And again, there's different levels of funding. You know, we are not going to kid anybody that our Division I athletes are not funded different than our Division II athletes. And that's a dilemma we struggle with, trying to manage both Division I and Division II programs. There's a lot of, it could be divisiveness. I think it's more togetherness, and MAVFAM is real. And there's really an understanding. Men's hockey, for example, provides about 85% of all of our revenue. And that is the rising boat that raises or the rising tide that raises the rest of the ship. And so I'd have to do some checking. If you would allow me to, I could get back to you with more accurate information, but at least we have anecdotally 15% of the football team.
Just a point of information for everyone, and for you guys as well. We did mention to our senators earlier that if they do have questions, that they can reach out to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. And we also include the students on that, so you might be getting a lot of follow-up questions later on, just for more clarification and for more questions. So continuing on, we have Senator Riggle, and this is your second and last question.
I was wondering, so you make a point to talk about your core four of recruitment, team travel, equipment and supplies, and game expenses. I was wondering if you would have the ability to share some sort of cost breakdown on how the money is allocated to these core four.
Yeah, there was a lot of information that was uploaded into the intercollegiate athletics folder. There's some summary information in there. There's a couple different one-page documents, and then there's a full 37-page budget detail that goes line by line, sport by sport.
Thank you. And then Senator Livingston, this is your second and last question.
Thank you. You mentioned about you compared individual athletic fees between like area universities who vary quite differently when it comes to like enrollment, sport offerings, like the size of their athletic programs. Have you taken account of these differences when laying out these numbers?
Yeah, I think we'd be remiss not to acknowledge that when we look at comparatively, when you look at fee per credit hour, and they cited some information about where we are relative to the average and to the highest funded programs on a per credit hour basis. That's one way to look at it. I think another way to look at it is sort of what you're alluding to. We would also acknowledge we are receiving the most dollars in terms of total student fee support of anybody in the system because of the credit hour base. Also point out, to be fair, that we have more student athletes, more programs, and more success.
And then our last and final question is from President Narala.
Thank you so much for presenting, Drake and Nathan, and thank you, Director Weisman, for fielding all the questions. A final question, and I'm a little bit curious to learn about the impact of an increase that we've seen in last year on the student end of things. How has that impact translated for students and how's the impact of an increase from the athletics fee that last year was approved by student government has seen on the student end?
I'm going to let these guys answer from an experience standpoint, but I would also say from our perspective, it did allow us to catch up for the first time on that inflation adjusted measure, recognizing that that's just a measure against normal CPI. We're still lag way behind what we would call athletics inflation, but as Andrew and Beck and the others that were part of our consultation process would acknowledge, you can't Google athletics inflation. And so we wanted to give a measure that was relatable and understandable. But I would say that it did relieve some of the fundraising pressure. I think last year we shared some information that showed that we had like 9 or 10 programs generating about $550,000 in fundraising that was really going to support the core experience, to get them on the bus, to feed them, to lodge them. That money used to be directed into scholarship support. If they were fundraising to fund scholarships. And that's not something that your student fees support. So I think we talked about the core four. I think it's also important to know what your student fees are not paying for. Salaries, scholarships, those types of things. But I would say it definitely relieved some pressure, maybe kept them out of the Waseca gym one time after a wrestling road trip because of your generous support last year. But we're still playing catch up, but I can let them talk about their experience.
So you're like wondering how your fee money has like impacted, I guess, us and seeing like a change and maybe like less fundraising in a sense. Okay. So I guess like as a wrestler standpoint, we're not a very glamorous team. We do a lot of like, food things like by ourselves, trying to save money. We don't go on many like fancy trips. We're not spending money on like a bunch of like fancy new gear, new shoes, none of that. And I'm very close with my coach. And I know a lot of the times we'll be talking in his office, and a lot of the talks are, how are we going to be able to like fund this trip? So on. I think in the last year, I've noticed maybe a bit less, but I think that's always just a topic of discussion, especially in today's economy. Just talking about how can we save little bits of money traveling? You know, maybe it's not taking a coach bus, maybe it's taking like 2 vans, trying to save on gas. Maybe it's not actually traveling a full team and just hoping our 10 starters are all going to be healthy day of competition. So I believe in the past year, I have seen like a good increase, especially just in like the stress, I guess, off of my coach's back. Because it definitely relays to us as athletes. Like when you have to hear your coach talk about, ooh, like, you know, we're getting maybe close on our budget. You're like, okay, well, maybe we got to go do more fundraising, go to more tournaments, do this, raise more money. So it's been a nice increase, especially since last year, being able to see like the stress off my own coach's back and hearing about it from a bunch of other student athletes. So I'm incredibly thankful. And like Beisman said, we just finally caught up outside of the red. So especially though with how the graph is always increasing, another increase will just keep that off us, as eventually it'll probably plateau and they'll meet again. So I guess that's from my point of view.
So this fall will be my 5th fall playing, and I have been a 3-year starter and 2-time all conference, and I still only get 1 pair of cleats every year, which kind of gets on me every August when I open up my locker on the first day, but I'm just joking. I haven't, in all my time traveling, I have not noticed very much of a difference. Our head coach is a very creature of habit, so we do stick to the same schedule, and I think that's in part with that. I definitely noticed that there's not as big of a push we still sell the same amount of raffle tickets, but they're not on us as hard to sell them with some of the guys who maybe, they don't have as many family members that can buy them. That's a big thing that I've noticed in the past year. But just from a football perspective, I haven't noticed a huge difference from that dollar raise to this year.
Since that's our last question, I'm just gonna pipe in with my own personal comment. As somebody who did graduate from Waseca, I do know that the volunteering and fundraising there has really helped. So you're actually helping a lot of small communities who don't have those resources. So it's a lot more impactful than you might think it is. So just want to put out there. But thank you so much for coming and presenting, and our senators will probably contact you with lots of questions. So don't be afraid. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alrighty. And then our second presentation. Sorry. Discussion will be later on. So just initial presentation. Our next presentation is the campus recreation facility fee / a sports dome fee presentation. So we have Todd and Sam coming up to present for us. And then also I do want to remind you all, after we discussed in committee, that questions do remain relevant to the fee. Okay? Just to remind everyone of that. And then just give us 1 minute, we're pulling up your presentation so we can share it on the screen. Yes. But if you do want to introduce yourselves while we're getting it pulled up, you can do that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Todd Fingston from Campus Recreation.
Sam Steiger from Campus Recreation and Program Coordinator for Maverick Adventures.
This should be loading soon. There we go.
Wonderful. So today, more informational. John has alluded to in the past week or so that this fee there's 2 fees, the campus recreation facility fee and also the sports dome fee, were voted on. Campus rec fee was voted on in 2008 by you as a student government, and the sports dome fee was voted on by the entire student body to referendum in 2018. So these are fees that have been approved and passed. So really we're just sharing information because they're fees that you pay in your student fee bill, tuition fee bill. Next slide. So why the fee on the campus rec fee? our outdoor spaces were not good back in my days as an undergrad and grad student. So we were replacing rec fields, the original outdoor track. We built a fitness trail. And then we added lighting to 4 of those fields so we could play at night. We never had lighting other than Blakesley. That was the only lighted space on campus before we lit these fields when they were built in 2009 and 2010. We needed quality, safe fields for some of the intramurals and sport clubs that you see there: softball, flag football, soccer, rugby, lacrosse, ultimate frisbee, and a lot more. And also storage and restrooms. We had to walk over to the old Gage Residence Hall towers to use restrooms back in the day. We did not have restrooms in close proximity to the fields. Next slide. So there's just a little snapshot of the rec fields that we're talking about. They're south of Stadium Road, so on the other side of Stadium. On the top, you see a rugby field, and to the left, a couple softball fields. In the middle left, a lacrosse field, fitness trail around all those spaces. You see about in the middle of the slide, the soccer field, the track, which has got a soccer field on the infield. And then to the left of that, a multi-purpose field primarily used for ultimate frisbee. And then 2 more softball fields. One has been converted to just solely soccer. The one field, kind of the bottom left, that infield has been filled in with grass so we can play soccer on that. And we also play flag football in the outfield of those, of that softball field. Next slide. The fee. So again, it shows up in your tuition and student fee bill as a campus rec facility fee. It failed a referendum in 2007. It was a $14 million referendum, and it failed by 186 votes. So there was over 3,300 students that voted on that referendum. But the next day, student government came to me and said, we know we need to replace some fields, pare it down. So we went from a $14 million proposal to a $7 million proposal. And in spring of 2008, you as a student government voted to approve that. So we started collecting fees in the fall of 2008. So it's a 20-year debt service on the construction of those fields. And I would like to mention, and I've talked to probably the last 3 or 4 student governments, that when this fee sunsets in fiscal 29, or when the construction is paid up, the debt, or the bonds for the construction, we are paying annual operations and maintenance for those fields. So think of staff that are mowing, think of utilities, water, grass seed, fertilizer, all those kinds of things. Along with renewal and replacement dollars, we're going to need to continue those to be able to upkeep those fields. So in fiscal, after it expires in fiscal 29, we are still going to need a fee, not as much, but we're going to need a fee to help cover those costs. And I'll show you here in a little bit. So the fee, the next slide. Breakdown of the fee, here's what you're paying: $250 per credit hour, banded between 12 and 18 credits. So the max you're paying is $30 a semester. We take in a little over $700,000 in a year in student fees, and that money earns a little bit of interest. Next slide. So where does that money go? About over $500,000 a year to pay back the bonds. So that's the construction costs. There's a fund assessment each year of about $14,000. We just talked about operations, maintenance, staff, fuel, utilities, materials, and supplies, about $135,000. And then a renewal and replacement fund. This is really important. And that's about $70,000 a year, but it replaces equipment and mowers. I briefly mentioned when the map was up there that we use money to change a softball field infield into a soccer field because we weren't needing it for softball, but we had a need for soccer. A lot of our students on campus like to play soccer. So money from this replacement fund paid for that, and we didn't have to come to the students for more money because you already were paying it in this fee. So, but that's really important. We also talk about replacing the infield of the outdoor track with synthetic turf because we beat it up so bad in the fall with pickup soccer, club soccer, outdoor soccer, that we oftentimes don't use it in the spring because we have to rehab it in the spring and summer to be able to play again in the fall. So we talked about using money from this replacement fund to help replace the grass to synthetic turf.
This fee, I think it really helps to break it down and look at it. We're paying the bank back. basically. It's like having a car loan. And so the majority of, 503 a year is going back to the bank bonds. This replacement fund is like if you've got a bad air conditioner or something in your house needs to be replaced. It's just a good fiscal practice to have some money to the side. And a lot of the fees and the bonds that happen around campus have these replacement funds kind of built in with it.
Thanks, articulated quite well. Next slide. Questions on this particular fee, the outdoor fee?
Are there any questions on the outdoor rec fee, Senator Dietrich?
You said that there's one of the tracks in the spring that sometimes you can't use because it's all ripped up. Do you spend any money right now to fix that in the spring to make it usable?
That's correct. So last fall, we played a lot of outdoor soccer on that field, club soccer, intramural soccer, pickup soccer. So this spring, after things melt, Bruce Lieberman, our director of grounds, will give us the green light. Yes, you can play there, or no, we need to start working on rehabbing that field to get ready for the fall. Does that answer the question?
Follow-up clarification question, yes.
Is money spent fixing the field in the spring when it gets messed up in the fall?
Yes. Yes.
How much?
I'd have to go back and research that one to ask Bruce Lieberman. Grass seed, fertilizer, those types of things. Yeah.
Perfect. And then Senator Mackey.
So, I know that the tennis courts are kind of down bad. With the tennis club has had to go over to the tennis courts on, I'm pretty sure it's on Main Street. Are there plans to fix that?
We've been talking about the tennis courts for many years. In fact, we used to have 12 courts on campus when I was an undergrad student, and they became in a state of disrepair. Over the 26 years I've been here, we've resurfaced the top of those tennis courts twice. And facilities came to us and finally said, we need to replace these. We can't put a Band-Aid on them anymore. So it's in the master plan. I couldn't tell you if and when, but we'd sure like to have new outdoor tennis courts and maybe some outdoor pickleball courts as well. So I'm glad you bring that up.
Alrighty. And then Senator Zellmer.
With the track replacement, are you planning on just replacing that top rubber, or do you have to dig down and dig up the asphalt and everything?
With track, I think it would just be a matter of putting a new, a new surface on top of that. Yeah, that's what we did in the indoor field house as well. But hopefully, to replace the track, that's years down the road yet because it's wearing pretty well.
Senator Knauer.
I guess I just don't know much about like soccer and like the difference between like artificial turf and like real grass. Will the artificial turf last longer and like how cost less to repair and replace and stuff like that, I guess?
That's really a great question. So let's say it might cost $1 million to replace, to put artificial in there. Here's what we're up against. Can't use it a lot other than one semester. We struggle with that. If we put synthetic turf in there, we can play longer in the fall, earlier in the spring. We could in fact push snow off it, and because it has lights, so that gives us more time and use on that space. I don't know the cost necessarily between maintaining a grass field with water and fertilizer and all that, but there is a cost to maintain an artificial field as well. You got to tine it, you got to broom it, you've got to do a lot of things with that. Put magnets on it to take off jewelry off the surface. A lot of things like that happen, but that's really a good question.
Senator Karki.
Thank you for all of that information. Are these the overall kind of source of funding all of these costs, or are there other revenues that come to play a part in it?
Are you talking to maintain the fields? Primarily, it would be student fees because you're paying back the bonds of the construction. And then you've also got operations and maintenance that student fees are paying for. I'm sure the university puts money into, the grounds department, the university is putting money into the grounds department, but they try to dedicate, a staff member and some student employees to do the mowing and painting and all those of the field. So I'm sure there's other monies involved too.
Yeah, if you wanna answer, yes.
Just some clarification, campus recreation also receives student activity funds. What we're talking about right now is a side fee that's just the campus rec facility fee. We're gonna talk about the SAF requests and things in coming weeks, but this fee, as well as the next fee that we're talking about, are just a little bit different. So none of what we're talking about right here goes towards the operations of campus rec programming in general or staffing. We're just talking about the fields, things like that. Makes sense? It gets confusing because there's so many fees.
A lot of it's the cost to build fees and pay those back is what we're talking about today. Anything else before we go into the sports dome fee?
The last question for outdoor rec is Senator Ide.
Thank you again for coming and spending your guys' time to give this presentation. I'm just curious, did you guys have any opportunities while talking about the tennis fields and like when you kind of redo them about painting lines for outdoor pickleball? I know there's a large demand for that.
I, as a pickleball player, totally agree with you. We went to Paul Sherwood, our campus painter, because we wanted to paint pickleball lines on those tennis courts, and he said I won't do it from a risk management standpoint because of the cracks in the courts. They're bad. If you've been out there recently, and I do spend a little time out there every spring and fall putting nets up and down, there's a lot of cracks in those outdoor tennis courts. So we do play pickleball in Shelburne and in Myers Fieldhouse indoors because we've got 16 indoor courts on campus and it's popular. I'm with you. I'd like to see outdoor pickleball courts on campus.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice President Jay.
I think a follow-up question with that is, have there been opportunities for talks about what to do with the tennis courts as the state they're in right now?
Yes, in fact, I'm on a committee to talk about the new campus master plan. President Roshid has been on there as well. And we've talked about tennis courts and pickleball courts, and they're on the radar because I've crafted a document to talk about both indoor and outdoor campus rec facilities that need to be addressed in the campus master plan.
Alrighty, seeing no other questions, you can move into the dome fee part.
So our seasonal sports dome, constructed in 2019, but we can go to the next slide. To build a much needed artificial turf field. So think about this, all of our outdoor sports in the fall, and they're listed there: soccer, softball, baseball, football, lacrosse, rugby, ultimate frisbee, and more. We were moving those outdoor sports in the field house and in Shelburne gym to practice during the winter months. We needed them to put them on their turf, so fake grass, right? So what it did is provided definitely needed space for campus recreation athletics. I'll say human performance classes, but we haven't had any human performance classes that they've wanted to offer out there. But specifically, we've had a lot of community and regional rental groups and individual rentals, birthday parties, just a lot of youth groups, things like that in that facility. So that was very much needed space. The dome is also now a year-round use facility. Used to be, we originally built it as a seasonal space that would only be up between November and April. And now it's a year-round use facility because we've installed fire suppression in it. It's not air conditioned, so it can get a little hot in the summer. But this past summer, we also insulated the space. So it's a little warmer in the winter in there, and hopefully it saves on our natural gas prices, or that natural gas bill, because that can get quite expensive. Next. So the fee shows up in your tuition and fee bill as a seasonal sports dome fee. So again, a failed referendum in 2007, that was part of that referendum. And then students took it to an all-student vote in December of 18. And they said yes to that. So we started collecting the fee. You as students are paying $2 million of about a $6 million project, and to the tune of 83 cents per credit, paying that back over 10 years. And that's about $10 per semester is what you see on that as a full-time student banded at 12 to 18 credits. That one's pretty simple.
Are there any questions about the seasonal all sports dome? Senator Bugney?
This is more of a statement. Thank you to both for being here. I serve on the campus rec committee. And another addition to why this is important, is for intramurals as well. Not only does it engage a lot of student activity, a lot more than people would think, It also gives a lot of career opportunities to students, such as with officiating or instructing. And one of our cool things is with the rock wall, there's no fee for anyone to do that, and there's open climb from 6:30 to 10, Monday through Thursday, and it's free to all students. And I know students from Gus Davis or the Lutheran Minister School in New Ulm, they all come to it, and it's compared to the U of M. Students have to pay for the rock wall and a lot higher fees for campus rec activities. So this is why this is super important, not only for athletics, but campus intramurals and recreation as well.
Thank you. I'll just make one more point. The sports dome fee, you're not paying any operations or maintenance on that one. So the operations and maintenance is covered with rentals when we rent it to the general public, when we have open dome, and you get in free as students, but if there's open dome, the general public will pay a $5 open dome fee. But otherwise it's facility rentals. We generate about $200,000 a year in rentals to help pay for the operations and maintenance.
Any other questions for the dome fee, Senator Livingston?
Your inquiry
Yes,
is partial statements allowed during questioning.
statements?
Partial statements allowed during questioning.
Sure. You have one?
No, just wondering.
Are there any other questions or anything? Alrighty, seeing none, thank you guys for coming in to present to us.
Thank you for your support.
Alrighty, so for our last fee presentation of the evening, we have the Student Health Services fee presentation. So if y'all wanna come on up.
Hi, my name is Salome Gabrazadi. And my major is applied health science with a minor in psychology, and I represent the Student Health Advisory Committee.
And hi, my name is Magdala Witzergau. I'm a senior studying cognitive science and psychology, and I am also in the Student Health Advisory Committee. And we are going to be presenting the student health fee.
So if you weren't aware of what Student Health Services offers, they provide quality and affordable medical services and health education to MSU students to enhance their learning experience and support their academic success. They have 3 tiers to their department that offer support their academic success. They have 3 tiers to their department that offer many services for students. Full services medical clinic where students can be seen for the services listed. Full service pharmacy where students can be seen for this full services pharmacy where students don't need to be seen by a physician to use our pharmacy. We have low-cost over-the-counter medications and low-cost prescriptions. Health education offers peer education, alcohol and drug sanction education, condom connection, and a relaxation station. Many Mid-State schools do not have a pharmacy or any health services on campus at all, so we are lucky to have these resources on our campus. We are currently located in our Karkoski Commons, connected to Crawford, McIlaury, and Prescott resident halls, and next to the University Dining Center. It's easy for students to come from the resident halls. We also have free parking available for off-campus students. We are also accredited by Accreditation Association for Ambulatory Healthcare every 3 years. So a quick video to give a tour of what our clinic looks like. These are all family practice. And provide medical guidance to the athletic training staff. Michelle Hammer is a full-time psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. And this past year, we've hired Megan Paul, a mental health therapist, to work in our clinic for counseling. Student Health Services recently hired Stephanie Litvina. Stephanie will start in March. She is a two-time graduate of MNSU and used Student Health Services when she was a student. In addition to our providers and nursing staff, we have a full-service lab and a full-service pharmacy. Student Health Services receives a lot of great feedback about our pharmacy staff. They take the time to make sure the student is comfortable with their medication. If students don't feel good, the pharmacy staff also helps troubleshoot symptoms and figures out what kind of over-the-counter medication works for them. Here is a patient feedback form in fall 2024. I just think your pharmacists are doing a great job. They are always very helpful, friendly, and answer any and all of my questions about my medications. They process my orders very quickly, and I'm really appreciative of all their work, and they're doing great jobs. Natalie Schutte is a case manager at Student Health Services. Part of Natalie's role is to be a Measure navigator. Natalie is available to help domestic students without insurance go through the application process. She's also the go-to person for providers who need to refer students to other resources on campus, whether it be the food pantry, accessibility resources, or emergency grants. These are demographics of patients seen in our clinic in fiscal year 2024. 35% of the students population that we see in the clinic is international students. 65% of the students we see are domestic students. Student Health Services is the primary care center for international students at MNSU. About 75% of all patients seen at health services consider Student Health Services their main source of medical care. 78% of our patient population is from off-campus. It can be misperception that most students using the health services live on campus, which is not true based on our patient demographic. This shows our range of age that Student Health Services serves. It's fairly evenly distributed from 18 to 26 plus, a good mix of traditional and non-traditional students.
Thank you, Salome. I'm going to start presenting on the goals. Some goals that Health Services is working on to support mental health initiatives on MSU campus. Student government's continued support and investment of mental health services is appreciated. Health Services has 4 staff trained to teach mental health first aid and has worked with athletics and the School of Nursing to increase accessibility to these valuable skills. Student Health Services are continuing to provide mental health resources. We have 2 psychiatric mental health nurse practitioners and 1 counselor on staff. And we have 1 new initiative that was developed, the Maverick Sleep Challenge, as well as the 3 Good Things Gratitude Program will begin again this semester. Plan for Health Services facility. Student Health Services is outgrowing the facility. This space was never intended for a medical clinic. Plans were to demolish Garkowski Commons where Student Health Services is located, but the university has not planned a location for us. We currently have to reserve to help fund a new location as this is an immediate need. We want to be ready when it's time. We would like to also increase visibility of the clinic through marketing efforts and outreach. Everyone should have a copy of this request in the Teams folder. We are asking for a 15-cent increase of the health services student fee to support the cost of living increase for staff salary. Last year, we had an additional $92,000 on our salary line just for FY25. This is a 2.4% increase on our student health fee. Student Health Services has staff from 5 different unions on campus that are in a new contract year. This is the same page zoomed in. With the 15-cent increase, the fee will go from $6.08 per credit to $6.23 per credit. For a 12 credit cap, this will change from $72.96 per semester to $74.76 per semester. Student Health Services is open full-time during the academic year and part-time over breaks and summer. So we are most efficiently using the student funds by aligning with the academic schedule. Most Student Health Services staff are 0.75 FTE or work 1,566 hours per year compared to the 2,088 with a full-time 1.0 FTE. Our justification for increase, we would like you to consider that in FY25, salaries are increasing by over 5%. We are now going into a new contract year for unions and will most likely see a cost of living increase. We are trying to keep up with lower enrollment so we can continue our services as they are. Health Services was the only Min-State institution that was under the required fee cap of $75 for the last 5+ years, and we would like you to know that the fee cap has now been increased to $90. Mental health needs are also increasing, and Health Services generates about $1 million in revenue as well. 75% of the overall budget is personnel and benefits, and healthcare costs continue to increase. It is usually surprising to people that Student Health Services has to pay nearly $25,000 for an employee to have health insurance for their family. Some other funding sources we have in our department, we anticipate the continuation of a $30,000 student insurance grant to cover a portion of our student insurance coordinator's advocacy position and serve as the South Central liaison for student health insurance needs. We are continuing to explore more grants to expand services that address mental health needs. Student fees allow our clinic to have student fees allow our clinic to have our fees at a lower cost to registered students. Most of the time, these fees are covered by insurance, but if a student is self-pay or insurance doesn't cover, there is still more. This is the inexpensive route. Our prices are relatively inexpensive compared to clinics off campus. For comparison, office visits off campus for a sore throat or a pink eye start at around $250. This is before any lab or physical work. We also recently have expanded our services to cover X-ray services for students with the International Student Health Insurance. Some obligations that Student Health Services have other than the salaries are, we have approximately $130,000 annually in rent. Salary accounts for 75% of the overall Student Health Services budget, $25,000 per employee for family health insurance, and other expenses like liability insurance for health professionals, which is around $25,000, electronic health record system, which is about $30,000, and supplies and materials, which could cost from $50,000 to $70,000. And lastly, we would like to present some of this year's or fiscal year's Student Health Services patient feedback. These are some of the things that the student wrote about health services, and I want to read my favorite one from this. This was my first time coming here, and I didn't have an appointment. They got me in right away and helped me with everything I needed. My prescription was filled right away. I was very happy with the services provided to me here. For me, this shows that the Student Health Services is catering to the student needs above anything, and that they're doing everything that they can to just be there for the student and make the student's needs first. We are happy to answer questions about our presentation. Our director, Antonia Yenser, and medical director, Jody Eglund, are here to answer any more specific questions. Thank you.
Alrighty, so I will open up the floor for any questions. Senator Zelmer.
Hi, thank you guys so much for being here. I was wondering, it had shown in the slides that first-time appointments are more expensive than an average appointment. I was wondering why that is, and does the first-time appointment means the first time the student ever goes, the first time that academic year per reason, like what qualifies a first-time appointment and why are they more expensive than the average?
Yeah, I think Jody's coming up to answer that.
Thank you. It is across the market, all in clinics, Mankato Clinic, Mayo Clinic. If this is your first time for a visit, it's a different code that's billed to insurance, and there's a higher cost because we have to go through your personal history, your family history, your surgical history, medications you're taking, and incorporate that all into the record. And prior to a visit, you're filling out all those forms for us so that we can go through them.
Senator Rego.
So thank you for being here. I just have a little question. I was wondering if there's like any possibilities to expand or start anything assisting with like the School of Nursing or School of Business, especially if you want to like do marketing and whatnot. Would you guys be able to like work with students to try and get some of that stuff done?
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. We have student nurses. We also have student nurse practitioners. We have athletic training students and also biomed, pre-med students that shadow or follow in the clinic, do clinical internships and preceptorships with us. We're looking at expanding to pharmacy, and definitely we would consider that as well. We would like marketing. It's just that it's hard to get somebody for the whole year. But I've talked to the different marketing departments on campus and discussed offering that as an option too. We also have graduate student in our health education that provide quite a bit of services and training for our health pros that go out into the community.
Just for point of clarification, and also for the senators, can you actually explain what this fee is going towards, like the specifics, so we aren't asking non-related questions about the specifics of the fee? It can be either the students or you, Jody, as well.
Okay, so you're asking what the student pays for?
Yes, the specifics, so we don't have irrelevant questions being asked.
So it funds the entire clinic. We do bill insurance, but our prices are half or less than clinics in the community, which keeps your insurance premiums lower. It has all of our staff between lab, pharmacy, medical providers, front office, health education, director, administrative tasks, that kind of thing. So it's covering all of those and the benefits and all of the supplies that go into running a laboratory, prescription medications and keeping that supply. I think that health education, all of that kind of stuff.
I think we're really unique in the sense of that our department is run with the staff that we have. So if our staff aren't working, we're not really taking in any revenue besides our student fee, of course, which is helping support that lower cost. So a lot of this, especially this year, is going towards that increase for salary lines.
Can I just add one more thing? Most of our staff are professional and they're licensed or accredited nationally with their licenses and require continuing education. And we have no money in our budget for that. So if you add that all up, it's about $40,000 out of pocket that we're all donating to stay licensed and here for you.
Great, thank you so much for that information. Senator Livingston. Yes.
I was wondering what the proportion of on versus off-campus students were, because kind of like frame of reference for like their patient demographics. I was wondering if anyone knows that.
So the information is, do you have information on whether how many students on campus utilize the service versus students who live off campus that utilize the service?
Yep, so we have 78% over fiscal year 24 was off campus, 22% lived on campus in our res halls. And during that year, we had over 10,000 visits to our clinic.
Does that answer your point information, Senator Livingston?
No, I was wondering like I was like university-wide, what's the proportion of on versus off-campus students?
Not our clinic.
Not, like kind of comparing it with the clinic, that's what I meant, sorry.
Let's touch base right after. We can take a look at enrollment reports and then you can do the math. How about that?
Senator Karki.
I do have two questions. I'll start with you said, as you said, there's a lot of it going towards staffing and maintaining all of the costs with that, but like for reserves for the location change and all of that stuff, with that not being like an immediate cost in a reserve and all of that sort, how, if you were to amend it in any sort way, like how, have you had discussions on situations where it could go higher or lower in terms of the percentage increase?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
The percentage increase that is being proposed right now, just in consideration of the cost that might not be immediate for like the reserves and other things that you mentioned, have there been discussions on any potential higher or lower percentage increases in student fees?
Not really. So our reserves, we don't touch, and typically if we have like a extra money, we'd put it in the reserves, but we haven't really had that in the last couple of years. So this is really helping just keep us our head above waters. So the cost that we have if we don't get this approved, like obviously we'll have to reevaluate what we'd have to cut. But yeah, we haven't really had too much in-depth discussion on that.
The only thing we have to cut are people, so that would cut services. And what our presenters said before is we have the lowest fee of any mid-state school and the most services. We're the only one with psychiatry, we're the only ones with the pharmacy, and very few have lab anymore because they've had to make all those cuts and it costs more for their students than you guys pay.
My next question.
Yes, you can ask your second question.
Awesome, thank you. And I use student health services a lot, clearly, and I definitely agree with all of like the helpfulness and easiness that brings to students' life with the services. I just had a question about a technicality is, clearly I've had to make way many appointments because we could not make more than one appointment per day for the system, and when I called in too, is that kind of fitting in with the budget or is that some other technical requirement?
That's an insurance requirement. Insurance does not allow you to bill for two different providers in the same day. That's across the United States. So if you have a counselor and then you have a prescriber of your medication for your mental health, you can't see them on the same day. I wish I could tell you that will change, and I would love to get that changed because it makes no sense for your sake as a patient coming in. Wouldn't it be nice to see your counselor and then go to your provider for your medicine for the same exact diagnosis? But insurance dictates that.
And our staff really try really hard to catch that, right? Because they have students who may be scheduled with Megan and then they schedule with Jody in the same day. And our front office staff have to catch that, and then they have to call the student and say, this, you can't do this because then you'll get charged extra. Your insurance won't cover it.
Thank you. Senator Johnson?
Thank you. Thank you for presenting, and also thank you even more so for the services provided. It can be life-changing and life-saving. My question is the counseling services here in the CSU building, is that connected to your, or is that separate?
No, that's separate. They are not student fee funded, and they do not bill insurance or charge for that. But they do have a limited number of visits per student per year, and they don't do diagnostic type things, so they won't do chronic mental health counseling and that kind of thing, but they'll refer to us. And so we work with them regularly. We meet with them at least monthly and discuss cases or referrals or concerns we have between departments.
And part of the reason is we brought Megan on, our mental health therapist, on for counseling, because the counseling center, you know, they have 10 visits a year, and then they can refer to Megan to continue. You know, students can see her weekly for the rest of the year if they want to. It'll build to insurance.
Thank you. Senator Thapa?
Thank you so much for the presentation and the services you guys provide. It's really life-changing, as the previous senator said as well. My question is very simple. As one of the points and justification for increase, there's a point that says mental health needs are increasing, right? So what specific mental health initiatives will benefit from the additional funding?
Being able to continue with the services we currently have, and then our health education department has increased their outreach for mental health. as far as the health pros going into the campus community to do more mental health first aid trainings, to do tabling events around mental health, around different initiatives for monthly things like Eating Disorder Awareness Month. There's sleep initiatives going on. We have the relaxation station, and we talk about how to do mindfulness and things like that. So it goes between health education and also the services provided within the clinic.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then Senator Ide.
Thank you again for coming and doing a speech for us. I was just curious, you mentioned in your presentation that around, correct me if I'm wrong, around 10,000 visits. Is there anywhere of a breakdown of sort of like what the visits entail? Like you mentioned that there's like 4 different main appointments that people can register as. Is there sort of like a breakdown of out of those 10,000 visits, what each of those appointments are for, or like a pie chart, sort of?
I believe that's like a breach of confidentiality that they have to keep to themselves because it's like student information, if I'm not wrong.
What I can say is we do a gamut, the whole realm of things that you would be seen for, from depression and anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, to a broken arm, women's health exams, STD screening, birth control, and we offer all the different options for birth control, sore throats, influenza, COVID, you name it.
So we can break on that information, and we do in our clinic. And so we can pull for each year what providers saw what visits, and they can get those numbers. We give them to the providers if they want them. But a lot of times it becomes complicated because like a physical could be a annual physical, and then they could also have a cold, and then they could also have mental health, anxiety. So that's like 3 different codes that would come into that visit. So we can do that within our clinic, but it's not public or anything.
Thank you.
And then I believe Senator Johnson, do you have another question? No, okay, sorry, your thing's still up. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for coming in and presenting today. Alrighty, President Narala.
I make a motion to enter into 3-minute recess.
Is there a second for a 3-minute recess?
Second.
Second, is there any dissent to the 3-minute recess? Alrighty, seeing none, please come back at 5:38. Yes, you can still send them all emails.
Oh, and then if you have senator reports, could you please come up here?
Mine's already written.
Okay, so use that information to discuss it.
What did you think about
I haven't been thinking, my messages are full like.
where everybody was just like
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't have enough to pay for haircuts
They have a lot more stuff.
My name's not even on. It's okay though.
Do you add an RV into the thing?
No, it's okay though, I'm a writer.
I'll show you ready to submit.
Oh,
Send her a text. I was like, I need to hit 5. I got to get it.
Yeah, I was looking at the numbers.
Roosevelt?
oh my gosh. Everyone's doing
Yeah,
it.
so I mean, that's definitely a thing to have a rank like
I have to run
Breakdown of softball.
My model gave a 94% accuracy this time. I am so happy right now.
In this picture, a computer will figure out which one is there.
That's what I said, it's a luxury as
Well, I use Python.
also kind of interesting. That they get funded, kind of like a double check. But I didn't check all that.
Like 1 minute.
How'd you break your arm?
Oh, yeah, that happens.
Yeah, such a unique case, right?
Well, I've heard like breaking your legs and stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking at that sling and I'm like, damn, that must be bad.
It's mostly the wrist, but they want me to keep you completely.
Oh, yeah, same.
Just no fingers, but it's not like a bad.
Hey everyone, it is 5:38, so I'm gonna call everybody back to the table. So we can begin session again. Alrighty, so moving on to our agenda is officer reports, and I think President Narala stepped out. We're just gonna make fun of him when he comes back in. President Narala, you're up for your report.
Alrighty, thank you so much. Welcome to budget season, guys. As we start with budget season, I'll keep this report pretty short. If you all don't know, we have about 3 cabinet positions search going on, and I will send out 2 sign-up sheets for 2 vice presidential candidates that will be here on campus. If you're available, I 100% recommend that you go ahead and attend these sessions. So that way you're well informed, you're able to provide feedback. After every one of those sessions, there's like a form that you can fill out and you can provide feedback about what you think about the specific candidates. All student email has been sent out with their resumes that are redacted. So ahead of going to these individual sessions, make sure that you read their resume, look at their portfolio and are able to ask relevant questions. Vice President Jay is on one of those search committees and she'll be more than happy to guide you through the portfolio, what the job descriptions for University of Advancement looks like, and any other questions that you have. The other one's for Vice President of IT Solutions, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have about those. So if you have availability, here's the one for Vice President of IT Solutions that I'll be sending out this way. And then I'll send out a calendar invite if you write your name in here, so that way you don't forget attending these. And then I'll send out the one for advancement from that side. So there's all of that. And awesome. We'll also do Senator Awards as we're entering into February. So we skipped January, but we'll do one for January and the one for February together. So the Senator of the Month for the month of January goes to one of our student life senators, but has done really great, amazing work in supporting our student senators, whether those are academic or student life. They've also hosted a lot of different events around campus, talked with administrators, and they've worked with administrators to push student voices and advocate for our students. For our January Senator of the Month, Senator Andrew Colloran. I'll yield to Speaker Youngberg to do the February one, but until then, any questions?
Alright, seeing none, I'm going to yield to Vice President Jay. She has a different report.
I have a very limited report. Election season is here. If you would like to apply for a position for next year's Senate, the form is up. If you have any questions about any of that, let me know.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No, cool. Alrighty. My report don't really have a whole lot, but you wanna come talk, we can come talk. I'm always down for a talk time. Alrighty, so President Raleigh gave me the honor of giving our February Senator of the Month. The senator has been working on a resolution and got a resolution passed, has been also like really leading an initiative when it comes to like safety for students on campus, and is kind of like really taking the reins and also like doing a lot of leads, has been doing a lot of like poster making for our events. This person has really grown in a bunch of the committees that they're involved in, and we are excited to see where this person's leadership and student government skills evolve. So with that being said, our February Senator of the Month goes to Senator Ben Livingston. Anything for me? No, cool. Alrighty, so moving on, senator reports. I believe Senator Karki, Senator Riggle, Senator Leone are all doing written reports, so you can check teams for those as well. Senator Isaac is doing his report next week, so thank you. And then Senator Hassan is not here today. So the only senator that we have giving a report today is going to be Senator Dietrich, if you still want to give yours today.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you want to keep it within a couple minutes, that'd be great.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, so a couple of things that we've been working on. Basic Needs has been working on a housing resolution created by Hassan Niaz from last year. That was to address concerns about international students not having like a place to stay during that 10-day gap between like apartment complexes, you know, that switch over. So we've been partnering with other committees and stuff about that. In addition to addressing concerns about students not fully understanding like what's required about like moving out of an apartment and like how to protect yourself from unnecessary fees. We've also been working with the Family Consumer Science department. We had the pleasure of getting to go there and with Stomper, our mascot Stomper, and doing some cooking videos with them. I just got back the videos from their students today, so I'm excited to share those with you guys after we get them edited. They showcased their students teaching Stomper how to cook some very tasty snacks and meals. It was a really good time, so we look forward to that. In addition to our work with the Family Consumer Science, they have created a food recovery network on campus. We partnered with them, Megan Hutmaker from the Maverick Food Pantry, and Lee from Sodexo. And now Sodexo has started sending over food that they cannot serve in like the dining halls to the students in the Family Consumer Science. Particularly their dietitian graduate students who require 1,000 hours of supervised experience time before they are allowed to graduate. They are gonna turn that recovered food into free meals for students. It's similar to the similar concept to Campus Kitchen kind of back in the day, but that struggled with retention of volunteers and the need for Serve Safe certifications, which take a long time for volunteers to get. their students get their ServSafe certifications in their first semester. And so they have tons of hours that they need to fill. And so we now basically have an army of students who can help create meals for students that we can then put into different mini fridges. We have one in the student government office. We're looking to put some in maybe the LGBT center, the counseling center, and other offices around campus to give those free meals out to students. Also, the library has officially hired its new OER librarian. I'm not 100% certain if I am allowed to give out their name, but if I can, I'll let you know when I'm able to. I'm very excited to welcome them to our campus, and I'm excited to work with them in the future. This individual has a lot of gumption and a lot of like go-getter potential, I feel like, and so they're going to be a great asset to not only our school but a great partner to us here at student government. And so I look forward to welcoming them when they start here in the fall. We're also looking at doing some different marketing things with the Maverick Textbook Reserve. We have booked an appointment with the marketing club here on campus to have them look at our marketing techniques and potentially give us some more solutions to increase the amount of the Maverick Textbook Reserve usage. I think that's it.
Perfect, thank you. If you do have any questions for Senator Dietrich, please feel free to email or talk to Senator Dietrich after the meeting. Okay, thank you. Alrighty, moving on. So we'll always still have this on our agenda, our one singular vacancy for the College of Allied Health and Nursing, but remember, we are not filling vacancies anymore, so sad day. So moving on is new business, no new business, old business, no old business. So we are going into announcements, and I do have one before I pass it off to anybody. I am requesting that you all do written reports for at least throughout budget season for senator reports. As you saw today, presentations get long, people have questions. So just for the remainder of budget season, so at least until after March 26th, you all submit written reports. Ready? Thank you. So any other announcements? Senator Isaac, I see you have your placard up.
Yes, I wanted to make a comment about me not making the report this week. I already uploaded both a written report and a presentation about what I was gonna say, because I wanted to present you the project that I want to implement during my senator semester. So yeah, that was pretty much it. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Do we have any other announcements? John?
Thank you, Speaker Yedberg. Welcome to budget season, y'all. For those of you who are doing this for the first time, what you saw today in terms of presentations is fairly common. Next week, you will have just one fee area presentation, that will be the student activity fee presentation. The files for that will be made public and available to you in the Teams folder like minutes before the meeting. I don't even have access to it very far in advance of the meeting, and we're talking probably within 15-20 minutes before this meeting starts is about when I usually sometimes will see that. So that's when that recommendation will be made available to you in the Teams folder. There won't be a message that says, hey, go look at me now. You'll want to go in there and check that folder for when you have access to that, okay? Other things to know, the week after spring break, you will have the technology fee presented. You will have the, why am I drawing a blank? Sustainability fee presented and the CSU fee presented. And so those are the three that will be presented after spring break. And then the week after that, you will have the big long budget hearing where you will talk about the student activity fee and the athletics fee. So I encourage you to, again, reach out to people outside of this meeting. I encourage you, if you have questions specific to things about a department that aren't related to the fee itself, I encourage you to ask those questions separately, okay? Some of these conversations went on a little bit long today, and you asked some good questions. Some of those are questions that I might suggest that you ask in private outside of this setting, because the questions in this setting are best reserved for something related directly to the fee. So I encourage you to think about that as we go along throughout the process. Lots of stuff going on in student activities. Encourage you to look at our website. For those of you who are working on off-campus housing related projects, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I know there are a couple of you who have mentioned things. The last housing fair of the year will be the Tuesday after spring break. And so if there are specific vendors who you want to speak to, or if you want to refer students to that event to come look for housing, that's the last one, last push of the year for off-campus housing advertisement. So again, if you're working on a project related to off-campus housing, please be sure to feel free to reach out to me if there's anything that I can help with, or if you have questions about things that we have available. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Alright, are there any other announcements? Yes, Todd.
Wednesday, April 9th, Student Affairs versus Student Government Bowling Challenge. And I'll get an email to Marla and she'll get it on to Amber, so you're all aware of that probably tomorrow.
Gotta see it. Thank you. Gotta see a comeback. Better see a comeback, you guys.
Are there any other announcements? Any other announcements? Senator Dietrich.
The Science and Engineering Fair held at MNSU is happening this Friday. Open house is from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. in the CSU ballroom. That's gonna be students in grades 6 through 12 that are presenting projects. Come by, see their projects. They're usually really impressive. I'm not a very sciencey person, but I work for the science fair anyway. It's a really good time. I hope to see some of you guys there.
Senator Isaac, did you have another announcement? Okay, yeah.
I wanted to announce / advertise a personal project that I'm working in. I created a website for a multimedia platform on news, not only about what's going on with human rights violations in Venezuela, but international affairs overall, and some law stories from the US that I was required to make for some of my classes. It's a multimedia platform that is both on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, X, Blue Sky, and the website itself. I highly encourage you to see it. I will send you the link for you to look it around our documents so you can check it out. You will help me a lot by sharing it.
You have a question?
I got an announcement.
Okay, Senator Livingston.
I just want to plug my Government 101 podcast that the Politics and Policy Student Organization creates. Find it on anywhere you find your podcasts. Thank you.
Senator Fallon.
I wanted to plug my fraternity's Flapjack Feast. It'll be at 10 a.m. I believe till 1 p.m. at the quarters. If you guys know where the quarters is. 100% of the profits go to cancer research, so it's to a good cause. It's this Saturday, March 1st.
If you want more information, I've posted the fundraisers on our student government wall as well. So if you're right outside the office, you'll see them.
And then Vice President Jay.
Just a reminder, I know the signups went out for next week, but again, we have two VP slots, many VP candidates coming to campus next week. It is crucial that we have students there to ask questions, listen to various things they have to say. Both of these heavily involved students, all of our VPs do. So I really encourage you to come, bring friends, tell other people about it, all of those kinds of things. Second announcement, men's hockey plays their finals regular season home games this weekend, Friday and Saturday. I believe there are still a few tickets available. There's not.
They posted on their site that the student tickets are
Student tickets, no, but overall tickets are still available. Yeah, very limited. It's a really fun event, you guys. If you've never been to a hockey game, it's gonna be a great environment. I really recommend. I obviously love hockey. I work in athletics. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And then next weekend, at the start of spring break is when we host playoffs. So recommend checking that out, especially if you're going to be in town. Again, it's really fun. So highly recommend.
This is also the best hockey series of the weekend because it's against Bemidji State. That's a biased opinion.
Go Mavs.
Alrighty. Are there any other announcements? Seeing none. If you all can just be quiet and sit down, be respectful so we can finish this up, then you can all leave. And it's not even 6 o'clock yet, so you are still required to be here. Alrighty. So going to final roll call, Senator Leon, Senator Franson, Senator Miucci, Senator Prignitz, Senator Emke's on Zoom, Senator Planting, who just left, Senator Mackey,
Here.
Senator Bugney,
Present.
Senator Reyes,
Here.
Senator Maega, Senator Thapa,
Here.
Senator Mpenga, Senator Lee,
Present.
Senator Dietrich.
Here.
Senator Smith is on Zoom, Senator Green, Senator Johnson, Senator Moore, Senator Baba, Senator Knauer,
Here.
Senator Karki, Senator Livingston,
Here.
Senator Rego,
Here.
Senator Colleran, Senator Zelmer,
Present.
Senator Ide,
Present.
Senator Hillstead,
Here.
Senator Isaac. I'm here, President Narala,
Present.
Vice President Jay.
Here.
And we're adjourned at 5:57 PM.
Any of these placards that you can bring to me would be great, thank you.
Look at that, keeping it on.
I took
Wow, that was crazy.
timing for that.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. I think I know we have a number of things also that matter.
Like it's a fair way, like as long as you communicate as much information as you need, that's the interest in government culture.
I just didn't think there was.
I can give you the other commission.
To me, there wasn't, not only was there just not really enough, in my opinion, but it's also, I don't know how to put it.
Like I think right now, I think for residents, like there's a lot happening in student government, and I want to change next. I want to say in 25. They just came. We have like 4 or so more weeks where there is going to be lots of happening. Like who's yeah, don't worry too much about it being too slow.
I'm planning on going to like actually budget stuff.
Yeah, if you want to do that, go for it. But if you're able to, it's not me as well, so I can fact check it and make sure we're awesome. Perfect, thank you.
Divided among
But like.
Thank you.